Hello. Apologies in advance. I'm about to speak like your audiobook on 1.5 times speed. My name is Evelyn Feldman, and I'm the head of acquisitions and electronic resources at the University of Victoria, and I'm presenting Slicing the Open Access Pie, developing open access reporting codes for library expenditures. So the question that we get asked, or I get asked, is how much do we spend on open access? I get asked this question by our reporting body, Canadian Association of Research Libraries, by our working groups, by our university librarian, by my boss, and the challenge I encounter is that I want to tell a different story for each of these different people asking me this question. However, right now, our old method before this was an open fund, and the open fund was just a fund that we charged open access things to, and the pie look like this. Now, obviously, this is a terrible pie chart, not how you're supposed to do pie charts, but this is what open access looked like for us. So I wanted more than this, so that's what the goal was here. So the new method was a series of reporting codes. We did this in our library system, which is Alma Primo, but reporting codes I'm sure you can do in other systems or just in an Excel chart even. It's just a bunch of categories. And the problem I landed on was, of course, how to divide all of these. I was trying to pick which category each thing should go into, and I was having a lot of trouble figuring out the right place for the right thing. And then into my email inbox came this article on the Scholarly Kitchen called Making Sense of Open Access Business Models by Tasha Mellons-Cohen. And I got very excited because this gave me lots and lots of inspiration. So there was a later follow-up in Insights. This is a second article that presented this. This isn't my work. This is Tasha Mellons-Cohen's work, but it's a series of categories to sort things into. And the problem here for me, not with the categories, but for me, was that these are from the publisher's perspective and didn't translate one-for-one to library expenditures. So they still didn't quite answer my problem. So I put a lot of thought into it and kind of adjusted them and took some and abandoned some that didn't apply and made my own. So mine's much less pretty, but my own categories. The ones in green are the ones I added myself, and then the white ones came from the original model. So the first one, cooperative. This is from the article itself, basically unchanged. The question I ask when I'm looking at this model is, does the thing, being open access and free of APCs, depend purely or almost purely on libraries funding it? So some examples there, obviously subscribe to open. For books, we have things like Knowledge Unlatched. And then I added an other category. I don't have time to tell you what these things exactly are, but they're mainly digitization projects. So primary source things that have been digitized and then we're funding, making them open access. The second category is basically just transformative agreements. So the question I ask myself is it a transformative agreement, but is there some kind of significant waiver of our library universities' APCs included along with subscription to paywalled content? And you could divide this into more granular types of bundles, but I decided that that wasn't important to us. And then we did leave room for an other category here of like other types of bundles, but we actually didn't have any. All of ours were just obvious transformative agreements. The third category, sponsored or sponsoring. So the question I ask myself for this one is the thing open by principle regardless of our funding it, but we're choosing to support their mission? So things like preprint servers or SCOS participation. And then the final category, one that I added, is our publishing platforms and tools. So does it support our libraries or our universities' open access publishing activities? So from the publisher's perspective or the vendor's perspective, these aren't open at all. They're selling us a product, and then we pay for the product, and it lets us make things open. So our repository, our memberships in repository organizations, archive it, and then tools, things like our ORCID membership, which we have for access to the ORCID API, which is a tool, or the journal search tool. So now I can show you cool data. Here's a better pie chart. This is what they look like for us, all divided up. And of course, the elephant in the room there is that we're including transformative agreements, which are basically big deals that have turned into sort of bundled agreements. So the nice thing now about this new structure of reporting codes is that I am now able to, if I'm talking to someone who doesn't care about that piece of the pie, I can just take it out and I can have a much more nuanced look at these slices and how everything is being divided up. So that's the pie without the bundles. And actually, I talked so fast that I met the end in 5 minutes. So just some questions that I'm still thinking about. Should we allow for some kind of fund splitting right now? We don't do that. So if it's open, it's open. If it's not, it's not. It's so much thinking and effort to like split things. So, but should we be doing that? How do we handle the question of how many subscriptions? So right now I'm not dividing single title journals versus package journals. So the how many question is kind of meaningless, and we do get asked that. And I would love to have a method to track successfully flipped subscribe to open journals, which we don't have. Thank you. And those are the references. And I would encourage you to check those out if this was too short for you.
Okay, so my name is Jesus Alonso, and I'm from University of Albany, SUNY. This presentation will focus on Luckily, a curated resource tool for discovering free online web resources for Latin American, Caribbean, Latinx, and Iberian studies. It provides links and descriptions pointing to resources hosted elsewhere. Up to now, we have indexed more than 1,300 web resources with full content, including audiovisual collections, books, data, ephemeral materials, government documents, oral histories, journals, reference works, and much more. This project demonstrates the value of creating free online resources to increase the visibility and representation of diverse experiences and cultures that are often overlooked in conventional scholarly sources. This is especially significant in contexts where subscription-based databases from the global north are predominant. Luckily demonstrates how collaborative collection development can support students and faculty in their research, teaching, learning, and creative work, as well as help digital scholars find data for the projects and librarians in providing research consultations and designing information literacy sessions. Here you can see a preview of our upcoming new interface that it will include how to search by filters. This collective initiative is possible thanks to the commitment of librarians from multiple institutions. Luckily is developed by LANE, the Latin American Northeast Libraries Network, a group of library professionals representing academic and research libraries mainly located in the northeastern United States. The project began during the pandemic, just as a simple spreadsheet, and has since evolved into what is today. It started with data provided by the Center for Research Libraries, which we expanded and refined. We draw from a wide range of sources to select candidates for inclusion in Luckily, from other scholarly tools and social media platforms to recommendations from experts. Each potential resource is carefully evaluated according to our guidelines to ensure it fits our scope. And finally, the metadata for each item undergoes quality control before it's published on our website. As an international project, Luckily has adopted several strategies to develop its collections. Over the years, two partner institutions have joined our efforts, El Colegio de México and the Fundação Getúlio Vargas in Brazil. Both have contributed with content and expertise. These partnerships have guided the project toward a more multinational and multilingual approach. One of Luckly's objectives is to ensure that anyone can reuse our data to build new projects. In this sense, Luckily is under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike license, and we are happy to see that other users have started to reuse our data, from creating LibGuides to designing lessons for teaching primary sources. During the rest of the presentation, we will examine the implementation of additional collective collection development strategies that transcend traditional extractive approaches to promote diversity, inclusion, and sustainability. Editathons are collaborative events where people come together to work on specific digital projects. This format has been especially useful for diversifying the content of Luckily. Here you can see images of two in-person editathons that took place in Ecuador and Spain. These kind of initiatives foster a sense of community among people who value open access and research in multiple languages. They also value the potential of increasing the visibility of lesser-known resources. Some participants who have attended editathons remain involved in our project. Here you can see some students who had who have experienced learning opportunities, experiential learning opportunities that have proved very meaningful to develop likely in a collaborative way. Students gain important skills such as learning how to select resources, creating metadata, and evaluating web content critically, as well as gaining expertise in collaborating on a global multilingual project. Here you can see photos of some of the students who have contributed to the project internationally. And finally, I just would like to share a few more couple collaborative initiatives which have been very effective to build luckily. We have started to explore collaborations with conferences or symposia that focus on our subject areas. One example is our work with the Latin American and Caribbean Digital Humanities Symposium. We contacted the organizers and asked them if they could include a brief message in their communications. The message invited symposium participants to add their digital projects they presented during the conference into Luckily. This strategy helps participants increase the visibility of their own projects. Another approach we are currently considering is to develop collaborations with web archiving initiatives, where we provide curated, high-quality resources for web archiving, and then other organizations take care of the web archiving itself. In this sense, we have started conversations about how to join forces with the IB Plus Libraries Confederation and the National Library of Peru. How can you contribute to Luckily? Because everyone in this room can contribute. Some of you might have a bookmark about this project. If not, please ask me that after presentations. But you can nominate any source from our website. There is a section about how to contribute. You can join any of the editathons. And then for any suggestions, you have our email right there. Finally, if you're inspired to replicate our model, we actually we are developing an OER that will allow anyone to replicate our model for other subjects. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I'm Emily Gore. I am the Deputy University Librarian at the University of Georgia, and I am joined by my colleagues from the University of Kentucky, Ben Rollins, who is Associate Dean for Outreach, Engagement, and Collections, and Mitchell Scott, who is Coordinator for Collection Strategies. Our colleague Emily Hopkins is not with us, but my colleague Erin Leach, who worked on the study, is also in the room. All right, so what is our study about? So Open Access Citation Advantage, or OCA, is the observed trend that openly accessible research articles receive more citations than articles behind paywalls. Exploring the OCA trend, our institution's research outputs is especially useful as we evaluate our OA investments and we weigh the cost of our OA agreements alongside the benefit of wider research dissemination, increased impact, and the value of open scholarship.
Switching over really quickly. So for each of our studies, I want to talk briefly about our methodology and what our research questions are. So with the Open Access Citation Advantage, we wanted to see if that holds true for each of the authors at our affiliated institutions. We also were interested to see, is that similar across different OA modalities? So is there an Open Access Citation Advantage for gold, hybrid, or it was a little bit more nuanced than that? And then finally, we were curious about what are the implications for our OER strategy, or not OER, OA strategy at each of our respective institutions. So for the data sets at UK, we used articles published between 2018 and 2021. We exported that data from Scopus. At UGA, they looked at publication data from 2019 to 2024 that included at least one institutional corresponding author, and they used Web of Science. So some of the variables that we found interesting in this is we wanted to look at citation count, obviously, the publication date, different OA modalities, green, gold, and hybrid, journal quality and impact factor, see if we can break this down by college and department to see if there were some variances there, and then if there were some differences between publishers. So now I'm going to turn it over to Mitchell.
So the key findings at UK was that OACA, I say OACA, OACA varied by discipline. And I think we're well aware that within some disciplines, because of benefits of funding, funder mandates, maybe more significance applied to OA, that yes, this does exist across certain disciplines. But we saw some big increases for disciplines like public health, which saw a major OACA, and then really null or limited effects for disciplines like engineering, which saw a very minor OACA. We had two variables that, when correlated together, created the greatest OACA, and those were grant funding. So when the author was listed grant funding for the article, and just 74% of our OA articles were grant funded. So just like let that rattle around, like that's such a big percentage we weren't prepared for. And so that when that grant funded article was published in a hybrid journal, massive open access citation advantage there. So what's the deal with gold? There was little to no citation advantage across the board for these. There was slight citation advantage for grant-funded gold OA, and then when we looked at it by publisher, Springer and Wiley had the highest gold OACA, and from our perspective, sort of outside looking in, we think that Springer and Wiley are doing more to create more gold OA journals, and they're also, it seems like they're doing more to flip more journals from hybrid to gold OA, and the impact factor that's associated with that.
Right. So the findings at UGA, we did a little bit different study. We weren't quite as refined as Kentucky and with looking at the grants, etc. But what we did is shown here on the graphs. So the graph on the left of the slide shows the average number of OA publications and non-OA publications in the Web of Science data set. We see open access articles have more citations every year between 2019 and 2024. You'll notice that the average number of citations trends downward over time for both OA and non-OA articles. You'll also notice that the gap between average citations for OA articles and non-OA closes over time. We expected to see this because articles accumulate citations as they age regardless of their OA modality. The linear regression analysis shown on the right examines how citation count is influenced by modality, specifically green, hybrid, and gold, while controlling for journal quality and article age. Hybrid OA shows the strongest positive association. Articles published hybrid OA received 4 additional citations than those published closed access. Green OA also shows a positive association for us. Articles that are self-archived in an institutional or disciplinary repository receive 2 citations more than articles published with closed access. UGA also examined journal quality and article age. Both were positively correlated with citation count. For every additional unit increases in the journal quality, proxy metric, an article received additional citations regardless of OA modality, and for every additional year, an article received additional citations regardless of OA modality.
So some takeaways at the University of Kentucky was, I'm not sure which verb here, funding meeting the APC need for authors at UK. We thought that was a takeaway. So much gold, so little impact. I talked about that. And then this has led to campus discussions, webinars we've done on this topic across campus, and then additional research Ben and I have done where we've talked to authors about their APC seeking behavior.
And to wrap up at UGA, we definitely also saw that modality matters. In particular, we saw that hybrid and self-archiving green matters, as well as the fact that our investment in Read and Publish has positively impacted our citation count. And we look forward to using this data and having further discussions on campus, and also using Open Alex. Yep.
Hey everybody, I'm Jennifer Freer.
And my name is Dan Trout.
And we are here from the Rochester Institute of Technology in Western New York to talk about assessing, onboarding, and selling transformative agreements. I thought by hiding this on the desktop it would be helpful, but still a lot of digging to do. There we go. All right. FYI, the presentation is available on the Whova app. Yeah, the slides have basic info, but they're up available in the app if you want to see them. Okay, so the code of conduct. So this slide just has some basic information about RIT, and the two most important things to note are that we before 2024 we did not do transformative agreements, and then the second big thing to note is the ones that we are doing now are through consortial buying, not independent buying. So what we've identified is that we have different stakeholders throughout this process, this being brand new to us. And we know that we have internal library department stakeholders, including electronic resources, acquisitions, research and instruction, which is our public-facing department, who are working with the faculty and the students, a scholarly communications librarian that is brand new in that role, and of course our university librarian. Externally, we have from the library faculty across the campus who can now publish at no cost in select journals, and graduate students who are also able to publish, and all the students on the campus are benefiting from access to new content that we could not get prior to this. We also have a stakeholder in our provost and our library administration, and they are important because they need to sign off on some of these. We're in a budget constricting moment, and they can also endorse and communicate out that these things are happening. Whoa. So RIT's history, as I said, never did transformative agreements until 2024 comes along, and ACM, the way they contract with us, changed and forced us into a transformative agreement. It opened the door for our staff to start looking at them within acquisitions and the electronic resources department, and we now have joined 3 other transformative agreements.
So there are two kind of sides we look at when we assess a transformative agreement: the content side as well as the publishing side. So some of the process we look at is we look at this as cost. Is this saving us money? Is this incurring us additional money? And how much additional money is occurring? Like we have our budget projections. If it's going to impact our budget projections, that's a problem. We also look at content. We're looking at sort of content overlap analysis. Do they kind of increase, does the transformative agreement content that we get increase the depth? So like, do we have deeper backfile access or the breadth of more journals, or both? We kind of, I oversee interlibrary loans, so we're able to look very easily at the interlibrary loan turnaway data, comparing, say, how many turnaways turn into an interlibrary loan request, or how many requests are we getting for print holdings that we have, as we all need space. So if we can get rid of print journals in our offsite storage facility, that's a bigger area. And also, do the titles actually matter? So like, are we getting junk, or are we getting content that is actually needed for our patrons? From a publishing eligibility standpoint, we look at like what's the data on how many people are able to publish. Is it just faculty? The number of items published per year. So we asked for at least 5 years of publishing data, as we all went through massive transformations a few years ago. We look at is the publishing limit gets capped, uncapped, or pooled within a consortium, and we're part of all of these. Also, who manages the allocations? We're a limited space, and we have limited capacity in terms of employees to work on this. So like, I don't want to manage everybody's allocations, and I don't want to be deciding that. So we're just looking for somebody else dealing with that. From a selling perspective, it's very important for our administration to kind of sell up to the provost. We have a new university librarian who's very good at communicating up and out, and also working with the dean's council. So this is kind of some of the bigger things, and it's helpful for our university librarian to understand, so they can sell out to everybody, and we can get, as Jen mentioned, the sign-offs.
So from the onboarding perspective, internally, we needed to educate the library staff regarding both the content side and the publishing side. So our public-facing staff, such as myself, a reference librarian, needed to get up to date, along with the scholarly communications librarian, on understanding the new content that was coming in, as well as how to deal with publishing questions that we might receive from our faculty and graduate students. We also had to work with the back of the house staff, such as those adding the content into the collections, because some of their there were some new processes involved.
Externally, as we mentioned, our university librarian sits on the Provost Council, and they went to Faculty Senate, and the number one question asked when we talked about those was, do you have my journal? And we do not know what your journal is, but we do probably have a journal. There's a lot of faculty and graduate student outreach. We used our LibGuides. We created kind of templates for our reference librarians to go out and chat and to go to department meetings, kind of create a little bit of a toolkit to go out and onboard everybody else. So what's next? Sorry, we had practiced this. We had a mess up, so that's where this is coming from. So we're kind of assessing TAs from both a content usage perspective and a publishing perspective. So we're saying, are they being used, and is the data being used? Is the content being used?
And continued communication with all of our stakeholders to make sure they're aware of what the publishing opportunities are and that how we have brought on new content that is cost neutral.
We're also continuing to explore new TAs, and as well as we're eventually going to have to renew the current ones that we have, and are they worthwhile? It's kind of hard to take away publishing from a faculty member once you've already given it.
And ultimately improving on what we have learned. Are the things we left on the table? What processes can we improve? And how can we learn how to tell administration how this has impacted RIT's research on both the publishing and the access side? Thank you very much.
This is a link if you want to take a look at our presentation in our repository, because it's open.